Check 1, 2. There we got. Now I got to do one more thing here. Let me just check a couple of things here. Check 1. Mic delay. How about now? All right, that seems to work pretty well. I am messing around with some audio features. Thank you very much for the thumbs up. I appreciate it. Just messing around with the audio settings. They've changed a little bit in Ecamm Live, which is what I've been using for broadcasting for many, many years. Thank you very much for the thumbs up. I appreciate it. Now let's go over to here. I got to keep an eye on my YouTube channel. See what's going on. We'll just do a good morning. Good morning. Let's make sure that shows up. It should show up fine. Thank you for the thumbs up. Lots of good thumbs up. There it is. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Final Cut TV and Coffee. Your Saturday morning Final Cut Worldwide Meetup. This is where we meet up. Everybody meets up here. From around the world, we get listeners from all over the place. So we'll see who chimes in here this morning. But in the meantime, please join me in a cup of coffee or tea, if you prefer tea. We got our first comment from Warsaw, Poland. Look at that. Wow. Warsaw, Poland, man, that's really cool. I have a Polish ancestry in my family. Absolutely. Would love to get there someday. I have to see how that goes. So what do we have to talk about? Look, it's the middle of summer here in the U.S., good old East Coast of the U.S., middle of summer. I always talk about it being the dog days of summer and not much Final Cut Pro news. We were anticipating the news about the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. If you've been following this podcast, thank you for the thumbs up. I appreciate it. Thumbs up, I appreciate it. If you've been following this broadcast, we've been talking about the Creative Summit for 6 months, that we anticipated it was going to be coming back in person in Cupertino. Well, it's back in person and in Cupertino, which just announced last week. But the other things are, when 10.6.7 came out, a lot of bugs. I said 10.6.8 is going to be out very, very quickly. It came out in 2 weeks. It's like a record for getting bug fixes out in Final Cut Pro. So other people may have been anticipating 10.6.8, but I'm the only one that says it's going to come out less than the normal time, which is 4 to 6 weeks. Came out in 2 weeks. So we're going to talk about the Creative Summit. Hopefully 10.6.8 is treating you brave Final Cut Pro editors fine, because I haven't updated. I'm still on 10.6.6. I am still on 10.6.6. We're also going to talk about these SanDisk SSDs that are, it's like jumping into the fire. Good evening from China. So far we got China and we got Poland. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Lutz Man Cave Productions, for tuning in all the way from China. Very, very cool. And we have people from Africa, South Africa, that have joined in, that will be joining in, Britain, Germany, of course, the United States. I'm on the East Coast. So the East Coast of the United States, you have the East Coast, it goes up New Hampshire, Boston, New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and then the South Carolina states, North Carolina, South Carolina, all the way down to Florida, Georgia. That's all the East Coast. Let me see, looking at the map, that's the right-hand side of the United States. On the left coast is where you have California, Las Vegas, Washington State, on that whole West Coast. Well, I live on the East Coast, which is thousands of miles away from the East. I mean, I live on the East Coast, which is thousands of miles away to the West Coast now. So I've had, Eric says he's had SanDisk SSD for years, no issues. No issues until you have an issue. No issues until you have an issue. Don't ignore all the people that are talking about this problem. There's too many people talking about it. There's too many people talking about it. If I had a SanDisk SSD, matter of fact, let's go over here to the graphics. I did have one. Here's what I say. Playing with fire, SanDisk portable SSDs are failing. There's a dozen articles, reviews about how they're failing. This is just one. These are all the reviews. Look at these reviews that you have. These are all the reviews about from different Ars Technica, PC World, Legal Scopes, TechSpot, Petapixel, independent reviews talking about the failure of it. Now, if I had one, would I use it? It would be the last drive that I would use if I had the option. If I had multiple SSDs, these drives that are failing would be absolutely the last drives that I would use. Why? Because of all the people that have them and have reporting problems. If you don't have it, that's fine. People said they didn't have any crashing in 10.6.7 as well. People said, oh, no, 10.6.7 is fine. It was not fine. There was lots of crashing in 10.6.7, Final Cut Pro 10.6.7, and they immediately put out 10.6.8 to fix some of the major crashes. So if you don't have it, consider yourself lucky. Don't trust it. I don't trust a single hard drive regardless of this latest occurrence. I always have multiple. If I have an important project, I make 2 copies of my media on 2 separate 8 terabyte hard drives. And the main copy goes to my 56 terabyte RAID 5. And then a lot of times if it's not that big, I'll put it on my 4 terabyte MacBook Pro SSD. But I never work off one drive with media or anything. If you work off one drive with media, you're asking for problems. At some point, you will reach a problem. Thank you very much for the thumbs up. It's appreciated. So, I have no allegiance to any manufacturer, not even Apple, when it comes to things. If I like a company, I like their products, I'll use them and I'll trust them more. I have no allegiance to any SSD company. I have a couple of Samsungs, a T3 and a T5 and maybe a T7, I don't know. Do I trust them? No, I don't. I use them as a backup copy of something, or if I'm going to have to be pulling something from my RAID to take on the road, but I'll make 2 copies on 2 different drives. Gives me a fighting chance of not losing data. That's important. You don't want to be losing data. I need another cup of coffee, another sip of coffee. But like I said, if I had one, would I use it? At this point, probably not. At this point, probably not. Let's go over here. I'll show you why. I did have one. And I returned it. And then they asked, do you want to buy it again? Which I found humorous. I just returned it. Why would you think I'd want to buy another one? It's just some algorithm they use, whatever. But I had it. And this is back in June. And the interesting thing is I didn't even have it for editing. I had it for this thing. I had it for this. My Lumix S5 Mark 2X. I mounted it right here because this can record right to an SSD. And I figured, 2 terabyte SSD, I can get a lot of time on that. It's not that big. It fits right here on the side with my cage. But I kept reading too many reports. Too many reports. And they're still coming in. In August, they're still coming in even in August. It isn't like they were just back in May and June and then they stopped. No. They offered a firmware fix. For many people, the firmware fix did not work. Did not work. So it seems like they're mishandling this whole thing. They should just pull those drives. Anybody that bought one should be eligible for a new drive that doesn't have this issue. A firmware fix. How did this get out of their manufacturing to begin with? Don says, how true about backups? Master media copied and stored on RAID 5 HDs. I work off external SSD RAID 4 and have 2 backups on that, 2 separate RAID 5s. Absolutely. The more important something is, the more separate backups on separate hard drives I have. Normally, I have a whole series of 8 terabyte hard drives. They're USB 3, so I'd plug them in and I transfer data to that. Usually I'll copy it to my, if it's a big project, to my RAID. It's 56 terabyte RAID 5. And then I'll make copies to both of these hard drives. And then I'll start editing. I won't start, and it's all organized the same. I organize everything in the Finder for big projects, rename files, organize in the Finder with different folder structures, audio, video, graphics, whatever else I want. Then I import that into Final Cut Pro via drag and drop. I rarely use the import window. I found it to be very, very buggy over the years, especially with the iPhone, of all things. You would think they'd have a nice connection, but I don't trust the import window. It just doesn't work for me. Too many failures. What's your experience? Do you use the import window or the iPhone window? The import window, do you use the import window? I don't. I never, 99% of the time I don't use it. I don't even know when the last time I used it. I can't trust it. I've had crashes. I've had weird connections where if I import iPhone footage via the import window, I'll import everything, will be fine. The next day I open it up and the iPhone media will be offline. And thank you for the thumbs up. Appreciate it. And don't ask me if the media was completely imported. Of course it was completely imported. I've been working for hours on this project. And I don't know how many times I've come back and the iPhone footage is, it's red. Where's the iPhone footage? So if I import the footage to the Finder, organize it in the Finder, make a copy, if it happens to go offline, I can just go ahead and link it back to the stuff I have in the Finder. But with the import window, it's flaky. It's flaky, absolutely flaky. So I don't use it. Same me, too many situations with missing files, etc. Yeah, it's really weird. It's really weird. After all this time, you'd think they'd have that nailed down, but they do not. They do not. I guess they're paying attention to other things. One of the things, so this Creative Summit is coming up in November the 6th through the 8th, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It is in cooperation with Apple. And from what I understand, Apple is subsidizing the event. And day one, we're going to spend an entire day at Apple campus. And that's what it's saying so far. I use import window, but rarely import iPhone footage. Yeah, iPhone footage is very problematic. But because I create my projects in the Finder, and I create folder structures, and I rename my media, and I want Final Cut to acknowledge all that when I import it, I just drag and drop those folders right to an event in Final Cut with the option that it'll use all the folders and subfolders as keyword collections. So I do that, and I like that really. It's worked out really well for me. Now, if I'm just doing a quick, social media thing or whatever, I don't really care. That's not that important. I'm talking about bigger, important, long-term projects. Small projects, whatever. I'll just import it and it goes in the library. That's fine. That would be fine. So let's go over to, do you want to talk about the Creative Summit, or do you want to talk about, I'm pretty much done with the SSDs. I know you've probably saw them on social media, and I don't really care. SanDisk doesn't make any difference to me one way or the other. Samsung, I don't have any allegiance to either one. I have somewhat of an allegiance to Apple, but not 100%. Okay? Look, I complain about this ridiculous upside-down turtle charging mouse all the time. It's horrible. The charging part is horrible. The mouse itself I like. But what's amazing is they haven't been able to fix this in, 6, 7, 8 years? They haven't charging ports here instead of like up here or in the back, or make it wireless to a magnetic pad. It's weird. But anyway, I do have some allegiance to Apple, the Apple ecosystem. I use their hardware. I use their software. I use the Apple Watch. I have an Apple iPhone. But this is another thing. This ridiculous USB 2-speed Lightning port on a $1,500 phone. $1,500 for the phone. I got the 14 Pro Max. And you give us a Lightning port. You stick us with a Lightning port that's USB 2 speeds. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, just like the mouse. So, yeah, I have somewhat of an allegiance to Apple, but I'm not afraid. I'm very easy, can call out weird things that they do. Now, I will be getting the iPhone 15 Pro Max coming out in September, by all reports, middle of September, and it's supposed to have USB-C. Finally, and hopefully the speed will be fine. We'll get USB 2 speeds, USB 3 speeds, USB-C. I don't know if it's going to be Thunderbolt or USB 3 to get this media off these phones much, much quicker than we can now. I use air. What do they call that? AirDrop, whatever the heck. I tried that. I've tried other things, and it's always slow. Once again, I do not import directly into Final Cut Pro. Too many problems. I import into a folder and then take that folder, organize it, and then bring that into Final Cut via drag and drop. We had a comment this morning on, I think it was Final Cut. Yeah, it was. Facebook.com groups Final Cut Radio TV. This is where I do most of this is where you get the news of anything that I'm doing usually. It's this group first. But we were on there this morning and somebody, I think it might have been another group, but they posted, hey, my inspector has gone from half height to full height on my Final Cut Pro layout. How do I get it back to half height? And I just responded, well, you double click the inspector title bar and it switches between half height and full height. So that was something that happened this morning I thought I'd mention. So we're going to let's talk about the Creative Summit. Like I said, I had this going on there. Oh, look, let me see. Where did I, you know what? I can't believe I did this. Huh. I set up on the other, well, whatever. Here's a picture of my mobile setup that I have. Now, this is one of my setups. This is the Weeble S gimbal. It's an older gimbal that I use, but I really like the Weeble S because I can put my iPhone with a big cage on it. This is a small rig cage. It'll balance. In this particular instance, I made a custom sun shield to keep the sun off of the iPhone screen, because in the sunlight it gets, even with 100% up to 100% brightness, it gets very, very washed out. So this is a small rig cage. It's oversized cage. I don't like buying custom cages for each phone that I get. I have the iPhone DJI wireless mic plugged into the side. I have a Sennheiser MKE400 mic that I use is plugged into one of the DJI wireless mic transmitters. But I can also use this not only for my phone, I can use it for my Lumix S5 Mark II X as well. So I have one gimbal that I can use for both the Lumix S5 Mark II X and my iPhone with a big cage and lenses and stuff. If I'm just doing the iPhone, I use the Insta360 Flow gimbal. It's my favorite gimbal to use with the iPhone, if I just use the iPhone. But you can't have lenses and stuff on it. That's the downside with that smaller gimbal. All right, let's go over here, start page. Let me see what I have. Training. Here we go. We'll pull this up to see what's going on. Yeah, cookies. So, desktop, here we go. So, reconnecting in Cupertino, Future Media Conferences in cooperation with Apple presents, listen, cooperation with Apple. That's an important part. It's cooperation with Apple presents Final Cut Pro Creative Summit 2023. This came out yesterday. FMC cooperation with Apple proudly unveils the 2023 Final Cut Pro Creative Summit, which takes place November 6th, 7th, and 8th. That's Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. The summit returns to Cupertino. Absolutely. The summit's kickoff allows attendees an unparalleled opportunity to discover the Apple campus and engage with the esteemed Apple team. When they say the esteemed Apple team, they're talking about the Final Cut Pro team. Based on that description, it sounds like not only are we going to Apple Park, not the visitor center, we've been there plenty of times, we're going to Apple Park, and we're going to be at Apple all day. So I expect there'll be a keynote. Usually the first thing we do is a keynote. I expect that will probably be a presentation from the Final Cut Pro team, the first keynote. It might not be, but the Final Cut team could be like 1 o'clock or 1:30 in the afternoon, and the keynote will be something else by other presenters from the conference. I don't know what the first keynote is, but it says the summit kickoff allows attendees an unparalleled opportunity to discover the Apple campus and engage with the esteemed Apple team. There it says Apple campus. Other places it says Apple Park. So we still haven't got 100% certainty on that, but on what's going on. But I think it's going to be Apple Park based on the graphics and stuff. Let me just move that down a little bit. The second and third days hosted at the Hyatt Regency Santa Clara. So in the past, we stayed right in Cupertino at the Juniper. From what I understand, the Juniper can no longer or could not accommodate everything that future media conferences need. I don't know if that's the number of people, the amount of rooms that they had. I don't know. But anyway, second and third days hosted at the Hyatt Regency Santa Clara. Santa Clara is about 20 minutes away from Cupertino. So the Final Cut Pro team is in Cupertino. I presume they're at Apple Park now. They used to be at One Infinite Loop in 2019. I presume they got to Apple Park, and we'll be seeing them at Apple Park. Maybe we get to see them do a presentation at the Steve Jobs Theater. That would be phenomenal. Because I'm expecting 150 to 200 people because the price has come down from $1,000 to $299. Hotel's still going to be expensive. And whatever your transportation costs, I'm taking a plane from the East Coast to the West Coast, so it's not cheap. I go nonstop. I cannot go up and down and up and down. I can't do that. We got a comment, LumaTouch. Hi, Richard. Terry here. Terry, is LumaTouch going to go to the summit this year? I really hope so. You were there in 2019. And while you're here, I really want to compliment you and your team for doing those fantastic Luma Touch tutorials for LumaTouch on the iPad. They're really exquisite. They're really good. So, as we talked about, you've been on the show, Final Cut for iPad came out. She said she's loved to go. Well, if you don't go, be in touch with me and we'll make sure you're represented there as well. Absolutely. So here's the deal with LumaTouch. And the reason I like LumaTouch for editing on the iPad is it works on my old iPad. It works on my phone. Final Cut for iPad does not work on the phone. Final Cut for iPad does not work on my older iPad. LumaTouch works on Android devices. Final Cut for iPad does not work on Android devices. LumaTouch for iPad, LumaTouch works on what are those laptops that everybody has in grade school? It works on those as well. So for me, it works on my older iPad, so I can use it because I can't use Final Cut because it's too old. And it works on my phone, which I use when I'm out in the field. And believe it or not, I was a little skeptical to be editing on an iPhone 14 Pro Max. Chromebooks, that's what they are, Chromebooks. So it works on iPhones, works on iPads, of course, works on Android devices, and works on Chromebooks. Final Cut for iPad only works on new iPads. Nothing wrong with Final Cut for iPad. Let me get that straight. But I prefer LumaTouch. It has so many more features. Number one, it has a scrolling timeline. It's number one on my list. Final Cut for iPad timeline playhead goes over here and it scrolls off the screen. LumaTouch stays centered in the screen like every other modern NLE does. But it's not that I don't like Final Cut for iPad. It's just that I can't use it. I'm not buying an iPad just to use Final Cut for iPad. But anyway, glad you're here, Terry. That's fantastic. So, yeah, we have Chromebook. That's what it was. So we're talking about the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. Terry was there in 2019. She was a sponsor of the summit. Hopefully they can do that again. If not, Terry, we'll talk and I'll make sure you're represented at the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. I'll be there reporting live again, as I have been since 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019, all the in-person events. And I've done the documentary about the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. So let's go back to the desktop here. The summit will include inspiring keynote address and exclusive sessions for Final Cut Pro certification preparation, complementing the immersive training. So this is new because this training is new. In 2019, they didn't have the certification training. Now they have the certification training, and for $299, you not only get to attend Apple Day and the 2 training days, in-person training days, you also get to go to the night events, the expo nights. They have night events after training's over, everybody gets together. And now you have certification. You get usually the certification exam is $149. It's included in your $299 this year. Beyond gaining insight into industry trends and cutting-edge technologies, we have the opportunity to expand their professional network and establish valuable connections. So like I said, the expo night, there's all kinds of things there besides just Final Cut Pro people. But during the day, we have lunch together a lot of times, coffee breaks together a lot of times. If we are it sounds like we're going to be at the Spaceship Campus, the Apple Park, all day Monday. Well, obviously we're going to be eating there in their cafeteria, in their coffee shop. We're not going to leave there and then come back. They're going to take 2 or 3 buses to get there. That's a very exciting part. To me, going to spend a day at Apple is worth $299 by itself, let alone talking to the Final Cut Pro team, let alone seeing all the Final Cut Pro professionals that are going to be there. You'll be able to chat with everybody. This is the biggest Final Cut Pro event in the world every year. And the reason it's the biggest is because it's the only Final Cut Pro event that's 100% Final Cut Pro. And this year it'll be Final Cut Pro mainly. It also have sessions for Final Cut for iPad, and it'll have sessions for Motion, a few sessions for Motion. Sometimes there's 1 or 2 just post-production in general sessions, but everything is centered around the Apple ecosystem and Final Cut and Apple hardware, because Apple is co-sponsoring this, or they're in cooperation. I don't know the technical, whether it's co-sponsoring or whatever, but Apple is certainly highly involved. Thank you very much for the thumbs up. It's appreciated. Thank you very much for the thumbs up. So let's go back to this description, and then we'll go on to some more. The Final Cut Pro Creative Summit is engineered to catalyze information, equipping participants to magnify their skills, explore new dimensions of creativity, and create lasting professional relationships. These are all the things that will happen at the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. Number 1, Apple Day all day. How else, thank you for the thumbs up, are you going to meet the Final Cut Pro team in person? All together, see a presentation from them? Nowhere else. Nowhere else. This is at their home turf, probably at Apple Park. In the past, it's been one Infinite Loop, but probably at Apple Park, maybe at the Steve Jobs Theater. Thank you for the thumbs up. I appreciate it. I'm still using Pinnacle Pro LumaTouch predecessor to edit on my old iPad and iPhone. Works perfect. That's fantastic. That is fantastic. I think I downloaded all those early apps. Wasn't Avid at one point on the iPad? Didn't they have an iPad version at one point way back years and years ago? I thought they did. I thought I downloaded it. So anyway, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, November 6th, 7th, and 8th at the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. Now, let's go up here. I'm just going to pull up a couple of clips. Hold on one second. Yes, that was Chris and Terry. Pinnacle Pro was Chris and Terry. Absolutely. Pinnacle Pro, LumaTouch predecessor. That was Chris and Terry. Chris and Terry have been in the business a long time. Let me tell you, I've interviewed them plenty of times. That made Avid Studio for iPad. That's what I thought. I thought I downloaded an Avid app for the iPad at one point. But anyway, this is exciting. If you want to edit on an iPad, you have great choices. Great choices. Final Cut for iPad, which just came out in May, and LumaTouch for the iPad and the iPhone. You can't believe how easy it is to edit on an iPhone with LumaTouch. Nothing missing from the iPad version, believe it or not. They just maybe rearrange some things. But I use the iPhone on LumaTouch when I filmed at live clips for NAB, rather than take them from the phone, transfer them to my MacBook Pro, no. I said, this time I'm going to leave them on the phone. No transfer, none of that painful Lightning USB 2-speed transfer. Left them on the phone, edited short clips, added titles, and exported them right from the phone right to my live stream. It works so well, LumaTouch on the iPhone. It's amazing what you can do, what they have done organizing and things on the phone. So LumaTouch is my main NLE that I use on the phone at this point. And I don't anticipate that changing. I expect it to be even better going forward. So let's go back. Let's go to, hold on a second. I'm going to do this. I am going to go here. Just going to pull up a clip. Here's a little clip I have from in here. So we went to the Apple presentation today. They just demonstrated Final Cut Pro 10.3 basically, is what they did.
Well, I was watching the live stream this morning when you were walking around out there.
Okay. It's about time you showed up.
What's that?
It's about time you showed up. I told Steve I was gonna grab your badge.
Was that it?
So this is an example. This is an example. This is the expo night. This is where the Future Media Conferences puts out a nice, fantastic spread of food and things. Everybody mingles around. There I'm talking to Mark Spencer and Phil Hodgetts talking a bit back and forth. And this is 2016. This is the very first year I started live streaming. So I started live streaming 2016. It's 2023, 7 years. I've been live streaming. Started with Facebook Live, which is why this is a square, because in those days they only streamed in 720 by 720. That's why this is a square. This is from the documentary. This is to give you an example, a taste of what it's like at the Creative Summit. Even if they do a live stream, they're just going to show the presenters and their screens. You're not going to see all this. But I'm going to be showing you some of this. I'll be streaming live from everything that I possibly can. So this is an example.
On old Final Cut 10.2.3.
Yeah.
For the past 10 days straight.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
We're live on Facebook.
Nice, hello.
Facebook Live. Michael Matsdorf and Thomas Grove Carter. We're on NSYNC right now live.
What?
We're on the NSYNC group live.
Fantastic. Hi, NSYNC group. Greetings, Richard. I have been summoned by Gormelt, who have your video playing of this right now. So if you'd like to build a feedback loop, you can come and film Roger playing this exact Facebook
He's
Live.
playing, is he?
Yes.
Okay.
So, here we are.
Whoa, what happens when you point to the mat? Wait.
So this was Final Cut Creative Summit Inception. I was streaming live. Roger had it on the iPad. There was about a 7 or 8 second delay, so he brought it over here and we were filming that.
We got a bit of a delay,
Yeah.
Wow, that's a long delay. That's not going to work because the delay's too long.
Okay, so
How many layers deep can we go? This is Creative Summit Inception.
That's good.
Oh, wait. That was cool. Oh no, coming back.
So we have a great time. When you see all the specifications and you see all the tracks of the presenters that are going to be presenting and the sessions, that's only part of it. Going to see the Apple team in their home turf. Like I said, in the past, it was One Infinite Loop. I think this time it's going to be Apple Park. That's exciting. That's a really big reason to go to this. But besides the sessions, which are great, besides going to see Apple, the Final Cut Pro team in Apple Park, just talking with fellow Final Cut Pro editors in the lobby of the hotel, going out for coffee in the morning, getting coffee and bagels with your friends, people that you know from online, going out for lunch together. They have dinners. People just get together, say, let's go to this restaurant, try this restaurant. 10, 15, 20 people get together, all Final Cut Pro related. They go out to dinner together. It's really, you don't get to see that part. I mean, I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to be filming it. I'm going to be filming with my Lumix S5 Mark IIX, high quality. I'll be recording in 6K, but I'll also be recording with my iPhone 15 Pro Max with the USB port. Because that should be out by then. I'll be filming with that as well and live streaming from that event. I'll be live streaming, not the sessions. I probably cannot live stream from Apple Park. They're probably going to say, no, you can't do that. But I think we can take pictures and videos. So that'll be fine. Apple doesn't like you to take pictures and videos of their employees. They want to respect their privacy. Completely understandable. Completely understandable. So I'm excited. I'm going to be getting in there on Sunday so I can settle into the hotel, whatever hotel it's going to be. I don't know where the hotel is going to be yet. I know the sessions are at the one place. Let me just go over here and look. So let's go over here, back to desktop. This is the official site. You can actually register now. Registration is live. You can register. Just click on that and it comes up and it shows you what's going on. You can register live, and I'd recommend doing that. I don't think they're going to sell out, but who the heck knows? So, and the dates confirmed, Apple Park and the Hyatt Regency Santa Clara, which is about 20 minutes from Cupertino, where Apple Park is. I don't know yet. I'm going to presume we're going to be staying at the Hyatt Regency, but I don't know that for a fact. That's where the presentations are, the daytime presentations. But I'm going to presume we're going to be staying at the Hyatt Regency, but I don't know. So anyway, that's going to be very cool. But if you look at this, see those circles underneath the Creative Summit logo? Doesn't that look like Apple Park to you? Yes, it does. It does look like Apple Park. So that's why I keep saying we're going to go to Apple Park. That's what I hope. Better have 10.7 or the like ready to go by November. I think that's what they're aiming for, unless something odd happens. And here's what's happened in the past. 2016, 10.3 came out right at the Creative Summit, like less than 24 hours before. 2016, 10.3. 2017, 1 year later, 10.4 came out at the Creative Summit. 2018, 10.4.4 came out. Well, they previewed it at the Creative Summit, or it came out. One of those 2 years, we got to see the preview, and it came out in December. But we still got to see the preview. So hopefully they've got something to show us. Obviously not just a bug fix. That would not be appropriate for the Creative Summit. Something new, a new version of Final Cut, 10.7, Final Cut 7.11, whatever it's going to be called. Hopefully, nobody's saying this except for me and a couple other people. Hopefully, there's going to be a new version of Final Cut shown at the Creative Summit. It's the place to show it. It's the number one place every year in the world to show a new version of Final Cut. It's a fantastic place. Just imagine day one, Final Cut Pro 10.7 comes out right into the spaceship campus, and it's all about Final Cut Pro 10.7 and the future of Final Cut. Fantastic. Not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying a lot of us are hoping for that. So thank you for the thumbs up. I appreciate it. So let's go back to the desktop here. So you can go there and register now. You cannot register for your hotel yet. Cannot register for the hotel yet. That's supposed to be coming up this week. Now, typically, the Santa Clara is an expensive hotel. I've checked prices, normal prices, and they're expensive, from $240 on up per night. And you had to stay probably 2 or 3 nights. Of course, you can stay somewhere else in Santa Clara, bed and breakfast or Airbnb, whatever you like doing. And then you can go to the Santa Clara for the sessions and stuff. And of course, you can go to Apple campus and all that, because we'll probably go, the buses will probably leave from the Santa Clara Hotel, Hyatt Regency. So you have to get, if you go to Airbnb, you go to the Santa Clara Hyatt Regency, meet there in the morning to get on the bus to go to Apple campus. That's not an issue, but it's expensive. The rooms are $240 a night to up to $340 or $350 a night. Now, they haven't announced the Creative Summit group rate yet. Typically, there's a package you can get to stay for 3 nights, or if you have to stay for 4, and it's cheaper than what you can get via just going on the website. So that's supposed to happen this week. They're negotiating things with them. I presume it's going to be the Hyatt Regency Santa Clara, but I don't know for a fact. Maybe it's a hotel nearby the Hyatt Regency Santa Clara, and the presentations are at Santa Clara, but the hotel somewhere else. I don't know. Probably not. Probably in the same place. The Santa Clara is a really, really fancy hotel. Really nice. Looking forward to it. So here it is, inspiration and training. So tickets are $299, and they include a complimentary certification exam voucher, and that alone is worth $149, typically. Complimentary certification prep course recording, 2 full days of cutting-edge training, 1 day at Apple, and access to Networking Expo Night to interact with peers and talent. Now, obviously, Final Cut Pro, Eric says, what does Eric say? Would they tease a new version at the summit if it's not ready? Yes, they did that in the past. They didn't tease. They showed the attendees of the Creative Summit the new version. I don't remember if it was 10.4 or 10.4.4. One of those years, it was not released at the summit. It was previewed at the summit, and we could talk about it, and we could photograph it, and share the photographs on social media. Absolutely, that could happen. So if it wasn't ready, they certainly could show us something and allow us to talk about it, allow us to photograph it, and et cetera. Because here's what happens. We get a presentation from the Final Cut Pro team. Everybody is together, 150, 200 people, whatever. Could be more because the price is a lot cheaper this year. Normally the price is $1,000. This year is $299, just for the sessions and stuff, not for the hotel. And so this year it's a lot cheaper. So there might be over 200 people. We all get together for one presentation in one auditorium. This is what typically happens. This is what happened in One Infinite Loop. After that, they divide the groups up into 2 groups. One group goes to see the Apple in action in the demo room on Apple hardware with the new version of Final Cut. And the other group goes to get something to eat courtesy of Apple. We go to Apple and we have coffee, desserts, mingle there, and then they exchange places. But that was in One Infinite Loop because the demo rooms couldn't accommodate 150 people. They can accommodate maybe up to 75 comfortably, plus the Apple employees. So typically they divided it up. If it's at the spaceship campus, we all might go to, maybe not, because maybe they want to control the size of the crowds. It might be the same thing. One group goes to see the demos, the demo room, I'm calling it, with a new version of Final Cut, new hardware, whatever they have. See demonstration from the Final Cut Pro team members. They demonstrate the new features, whatever. The other team gets coffee, gets desserts, maybe little sandwiches and stuff at the Apple Cafe. About a half hour later, they're supposed to switch. Then the second group goes to the cafe, and the other group goes to the demo room. It's really, really nice. I can't say enough about the Creative Summits. They've all been very nice. 2019, we didn't get a new version of Final Cut. I was expecting 10.5. We didn't get anything. We just got 10.4 stuff. So that was a little bit disappointing from that aspect of it. The new version of Final Cut not coming out when it came out in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, we didn't get a new version of Final Cut. But we still got to see the team. We got to talk to the team. In those days, we have a meet and greet, a Q&A session with the team. We can ask questions. We can pre-submit questions. We can ask them all kinds of things. They may or may not answer, but they were very forthcoming. One of the things, if that happens, though, typically is things that are talked about in that room at that meeting stay in that room in that meeting. There's no recordings. There's no audio recordings. There's no photographs. And the content is supposed to stay in that meeting in that room. So if that happens again, I expect the same thing. These meetings are just for the attendees of the Creative Summit. And unless it's something simple like, they said, if you submit a request, every email that's submitted is read by somebody on the team. Doesn't mean they're going to respond to it, especially, they're not going to send you an email or call you up. But every one is read. That's one of the things they said. I'm sure they don't mind us talking about that. So here we go. Let's go back to the main page. So this is the URL is Final Cut Pro Creative Summits, plural. FCP Creative Summits, plural, is what the website is. The program is not there yet. Come back soon for details. In association with Apple, presented by Future Media Concepts. Absolutely. What's going on outside? Anything going on out there? I don't see, there is suet out there for the birds. It's very, very, we're in the middle of summer here on the East Coast of good old USA. But I don't see any activity. I mowed the grass yesterday. Don't see much activity out there. So what do you think? Who's planning on going to the summit? I'm going to ask for your help a little bit later. I'm planning on going to the summit, and there's going to be a combination of things I'm going to do. I'm going to stream some live where I can. I probably can't stream from Apple campus. We'll see. We will see. Luma Touch. Terry said, beautiful yard. It's beautiful in the summertime, in the springtime. In the fall, I have 100 oak trees. I mean, not 100. I have 30 100-foot oak trees, and the leaves are just amazing to clean up after. Every year I have that situation, but thank you. Relink issue this week. I had to import the clips again because they wouldn't relink, and this didn't work. Went back to import, and the drop down menu under import, I never noticed before, had said, had to recapture camera footage. I'm not sure exactly what it said, but this relinked thing, this is exactly, Patrick, what I'm talking about. I don't use the import window for problems like this. I've seen this over the years. It's unreliable. It's been unreliable for a while. If you capture your media into a folder, here's what I do. I create one master folder with the title of my project. One master folder. Inside the master folder, I have a couple, 2 or 3 or 4 subfolders. One has my video clips. If I have separate audio, I have one has my audio clips. One might have still images. One might have something else. So maybe 4 or 5 subfolders inside the master folder. Also inside the master folder is my Final Cut Pro library. I save it inside the master folder. Now, with Final Cut Pro open and the library open, I go into these folders and just drag all the folders into a Final Cut Pro event. When I do that, Final Cut Pro creates keyword collections for all the different folders if you have that option checked. And I don't have that issue of things needing to be relinked and stuff if I don't use the import window. I don't know what the problem is. I don't know. Everybody doesn't see it. I see it all the time, but I do shoot a lot on my iPhone. I do shoot a lot with my iPhone. So this is one of the things I got that I'm taking with me. Look, one of the things, this little mini tripod here that not a tripod, but a base. And I have quick disconnect and connect options on this. But this, oops, dropped on the floor. This is my Lumix S5S Mark II. This is the 24 millimeter f1.8 lens. This microphone, I'm going to take that off. I'm not using it right now. This camera, one of the reasons I got this camera is for shooting at the Creative Summit. In the presentation rooms where people are doing presentations, it's been dark, a little dark from my iPhone. Yeah, I did capture some stuff. It's in the documentary, but it's a little bit on the dark side, and it's a little bit grainy. This, with the f1.8 prime lens, I have a 24 millimeter prime, and I have a 50 millimeter f1.8 prime. And this is a great, great low light camera. And I can shoot in 6K. So I brought this. One of the reasons I got it was to shoot some of the sessions at the Creative Summit. Now, I'm not saying that I'm going to be covering the sessions at the Creative Summit. That's not what I'm doing. But if there's a keynote that I can videotape, I will videotape the keynote. If there's sessions, my friends, Serena Catania, Philip Hodges does one, Steve Martin will do one, Sam Messman, I'll go in and tape 5 minutes of their presentation for them. So they'll have a clip, and I'll have a little presentation clip for if I continue the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit documentary. Because I have version 1 out now and version 2, if we have to have it. But I'll put up short clips at nighttime. And also if I get, probably not at night, probably I'm going to do them in the morning. Typically at night, I'm pretty tired. So typically at night, I'll come and go crash, get up early, super early in the morning. I get up here on the East Coast. I got up here at 3 o'clock this morning, 3 a.m., went out for my walk, fed the cats, et cetera, et cetera. So I'll get up early at Creative Summit as well. So, and the other thing about the Creative Summit, the Expo night is not just Apple and Apple people. It also, last time, was LumaFusion was there. LumaTouch, LumaFusion. Blackmagic was there. Blackmagic was a sponsor. Saramonic was a sponsor with all their gizmos and stuff. So there's a lot of third-party vendors that come there that are not Apple specific. But, you know, Blackmagic is like a competitor, aren't they? They are indeed to Apple, especially. And I asked the lady that was there, I said, where's B-Raw support in Final Cut Pro? And she said, I wish I knew. I wish I knew. But anyway, coming up, Lutz says, have a great day, everyone. Gotta go. I gotta go myself. I got some other things I gotta do today. But I'll be back, Final Cut TV and Coffee, next Saturday at 10 o'clock. If there's nothing else going on, I do expect an announcement about the rates. Yeah, drag and drop. Just drag it right to the event. Create an event and just hover over it. And if you have it set up, it won't copy the media into the library. It'll just, if you have a curved arrow, when you drag it over top of the event, that means it's just going to link to the media in your folder. That's what you want. There's a preference in Final Cut that says, you know, link to the external media, don't copy it. That's the preference that you want. But I expect this week, Final Cut Pro Creative Summit will be announcing the rates for the rooms, which obviously will be cheaper than the standard rates you can book by yourself. So hopefully that's going to be cheap enough that it's going to be expensive. That's a very fancy hotel. I'm expecting, you know, a good chunk of change coming out. But I might come back on. I don't think I'm going to come back on just for that. I'll make my announcements on Twitter. And as you know, this is the main group right here. This is the main group that I make my announcements in. Facebook.com groups, Final Cut Radio TV. That's where I announce things first. Also, Final Cut Tips and Tricks and Final Cut for iPad Tips and Tricks. Those are 3 Facebook groups that I've created for Final Cut Pro people. But this is the main one. Final Cut Pro, Facebook.com groups, Final Cut Radio TV. That's the main place that you want to go to keep track of the current news. Now, don't forget, subscribe over there at YouTube. What you're watching right now, Richard Taylor TV. Subscribe over there. Click the bell. Thank you, everybody, for the thumbs up. You guys and gals are the best audience in the world. You're the best. Absolutely the best. I want to thank everybody for stopping in today. I think I'm going to get out of here. It's been an hour. I'll be back next Saturday, probably at 10 o'clock, but just subscribe and you'll know. Sometimes I go 9 o'clock, sometimes I go 11. 10 o'clock is going to be my typical time to go on there. And we have coffee. And we have talk about Final Cut Pro. What else? What else is there to talk about? Thanks, Terry, LumaTouch, for sure, for tuning in today. Glad to have you anytime. Hopefully you can make it to the Creative Summit. If you can't, we'll be in touch and we'll make sure that you're represented there. But I'm looking forward to meeting everybody. The last time LumaTouch was there, LumaFusion was there, Michael Yanovich bought a copy of LumaTouch. And he talked about it in the Creative Summit documentary. So let's just see a little bit here. Here's a typical room. This was off the tracks when it was presented. Documentary I co-edited with Brad Olson.
At least so far.
So this is me.
Once again,
talking in the morning.
We don't know
the session starts
until we get there what the conditions are, what we can do, what we can't do. But right now, you're just not allowed to talk about stuff.
So you can set white balance right there, and then you can set manual white balance.
And you can see it on the scope with all the data.
Yeah, so here.
Are we going? Oh, people are going.
Sometimes it's just a standalone topic.
And
That's what they tell us. Campus. State campus. Didn't we do this last year?
We did.